Have you ever wondered why money seems to run toward some people as though it recognizes them, while others chase it endlessly and still feel empty-handed, because the unseen laws governing prosperity are never taught in schools, yet they shape every financial destiny in silence? And today, your mind is about to open to a truth that can completely reverse the story of lack you may have been telling yourself for years. For money is not a thing you earn, but a current you align with. And when the medal comes down, and you go klein, soul is tuned to the divine pattern abundance must follow as naturally as daylight follows dawn. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that every word spoken in belief is a command sent into the invisible realm, and the universe cannot argue with your inner decree. So if your inner language has been one of worry, fear, resentment, or bitterness toward wealth, then the very substance you desire has been faithfully obeying the instructions you unknowingly gave it to stay away, because divine law never punishes, it only reflects. The moment you realize that poverty is not a punishment but a message, you stop blaming the world, your family, your education, your country, or your luck, and you begin the sacred work of alignment, which starts not with your bank account, but with your consciousness. To align is to accept that supply is infinite and that your task is not to beg, but to prepare, just as one would not complain about darkness, but open the window to let the sun pour in, because the sun has never failed to shine, it only waits for permission to enter. The habit of saying, "I cannot afford," that is one of the most destructive prayers ever spoken, for it seals the door to the treasury of the unseen, while the quiet affirmation "divine abundance flows to me" now breaks open channels you cannot trace with logic, but will soon recognize through experience. There is a sacred law of expectancy which says that what you prepare for, you receive, so when you prepare your thoughts for wealth, you become magnetic to opportunity, insight, invention, and inspired action that no resume could ever attract. Many people mistake striving for alignment and believe that endless labor proves worthiness. But divine law does not reward exhaustion, it rewards resonance, and the person who moves through the world in trust often accomplishes in one calm hour what another cannot force in 10 anxious years. As you listen now, something subtle is shifting within you, a sense that the ceiling you thought was fixed may in fact be a door you forgot you were holding shut. And this realization is not coincidence, but orchestration, for the divine never shouts yet, always answers the quiet willingness of the heart. Begin today to speak as though your supply is already established, to imagine as though every need is already met, to act with the dignity of one who expects success, and you will feel the current changing direction around you, because money is not a master to be chased, but a servant to be welcomed. And when the inner house is made ready, the invisible host arrives bearing gifts beyond calculation. Please reply when you are ready for paragraph 2. There comes a moment in every transformation when doubt rises like a sudden storm and whispers that perhaps nothing is really changing at all. And this is the precise point where most people abandon the path of divine alignment and retreat to the familiar misery of limitation, not because the law has failed them, but because suspense has entered the story to test the firmness of their faith. You may have started to affirm, to imagine, to feel the quiet hope of abundance stirring within you, yet the outer world may look exactly the same. Bills still arrive, accounts still feel thin, and old fears try to reclaim their throne. But Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the unseen always moves first, that every manifestation is preceded by a season of apparent stillness, just as a seed rests in darkness before daring to split the soil. This middle stage is sacred, because here the mind is tempted to betray the soul, and the greatest miracles are lost not through bad fortune, but through impatience, when a person decides that divine law must be measured by yesterday's evidence instead of tomorrow's promise. If you hold steady, if you continue to speak prosperity into empty spaces, you are doing more than wishful thinking. You are engraving a new pattern upon the invisible substance that shapes your visible world. There is a law of non-resistance which states that what you fight, you empower, and so when you argue with lack, you strengthen it. Yet when you calmly assume abundance, you deprive poverty of its only ally, your attention. In this suspenseful interval, the ego demands proof, but the soul requires only conviction, and when conviction is complete, proof is inevitable. Many will quit here, telling themselves that divine principles are comforting stories for dreamers, and they will never know that they stood at the edge of a turning tide, because the universe always delays its gifts just long enough to reveal who truly believes. Remain unmoved by temporary shadows, for shadows exist only where light is approaching from behind, and every obstacle that seems to mock your effort is in truth rearranging itself to become your evidence. The unseen helpers are already dispatched. Connections are aligning, ideas are being planted in other minds that will soon intersect your own, and all this activity is concealed behind the curtain of ordinary days so that you may learn to trust without spectacle. If anxiety grips you now, remember that fear is not a warning, but a residue of old agreements with limitation, and each time you refuse to indulge it, you dissolve a contract you never meant to sign. Speak your affirmations even when your voice trembles, imagine your prosperity even when your senses protest, and walk with the poise of someone who knows the ending of the story is already written in gold, because this chapter of suspense is not a delay but a divine compression, a gathering of forces that must converge before the floodgates can open. Hold the image of wealth not as something approaching from afar, but as something reorganizing itself around you, and soon the silence will break, the doors will swing, and you will realize that the test was never about money at all, but about your willingness to remain faithful when nothing seemed to be happening. Please reply when you are ready for paragraph 3. The breakthrough always arrives with a quiet certainty rather than a trumpet blast, and one morning you will awaken with a peace that has nothing to do with the numbers on a screen, yet somehow those numbers will soon begin to follow the peace, for divine law moves in perfect order and rewards the soul that has learned to rest in trust rather than strain in fear. You will notice that opportunities appear where you once saw dead ends, that ideas flow without effort, that people respond differently to you, not because they changed, but because your vibration announced a new story before you ever spoke. And this is the true secret of wealth, that it is a state of consciousness long before it becomes a state of possession. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote that man can only receive what he sees himself receiving, and by now your inner sight has been polished through persistence, so the abundance that once felt imaginary now feels inevitable, like a destination you already recognize even before you arrive. The old identity that clung to scarcity will seem like a faded photograph of someone you barely remember, because each day you have chosen to think in harmony with divine supply, to release resentment, to forgive debts of emotion as well as of money, and these inner acts have cleared the channels through which prosperity must flow. Gratitude becomes your natural language, not because you are pretending, but because you finally understand that every good thing is evidence of a law that cannot fail, and the smallest signs of increase are celebrated as proof of alignment rather than dismissed as coincidence. As the current strengthens, you become a giver without fear, knowing that circulation is the heartbeat of abundance and that nothing truly yours can ever be taken from you, because divine law is not a pie to be divided, but an ocean to be entered. The mind that once obsessed over how is now content with now, and this contentment is not complacency, but mastery. The calm assurance that the unseen is working with greater precision than any plan you could force upon it. You stand differently in the world, not with arrogance, but with expectancy, and this expectancy is felt by every circumstance you encounter, drawing success toward you like iron to a magnet whose polarity has been reversed. What began as fragile hope has matured into quiet authority, the authority of one who has tested the law and found it faithful, who has walked through suspense without surrender, and who now understands that money is not a reward for suffering, but a response to harmony. The story of your finances is no longer written by fear, by trends, by rumors, or by the memories of past failure, but by a divine principle that has been waiting patiently for your consent. And now that consent is complete, the channels open wider with each thankful thought, each generous deed, each declaration of faith. Let this moment mark the end of effort and the beginning of flow, the transition from chasing to allowing, from pleading to commanding, from wondering if it will happen to knowing that it must, because divine law is never late, only exact. Carry this awareness into every ordinary hour, for it is in the ordinary that miracles take root, and soon you will look back on the time of lack, not with bitterness, but with reverence, as the necessary contrast that taught you the power you had been carrying silently all along. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.